What it do, what it do, what it do, what it do. Matt Bill FPV here, coming at you from the home workbench with a little ditty for all you budget-oriented fellow flyers out there. I'm doing a bit of a build for a budget quadcopter. It's heavily inspired by the Drone Mesh $140 build, which I will link to in the description at risk of undermining my own video. But much like my last video, this is not a true build video per se. I don't show you the steps that goes into building it. He does. If you want to go watch his video, you can get a better idea of what goes into that. Mine, I wanted to do a video like that for you guys, but I didn't really have enough time. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the materials necessary to kind of bring the vision, so to speak, that I had to life. But hopefully one day, maybe my next build or something, I'll be better prepared and I'll be able to bring you something a bit closer to what I had in mind. But anyway, this will be like an overview of the parts and a bit of a testing, a little bit of like tune and stuff. Not really tuning. I'm not a tuner, but I'm gonna take you guys out there while I tune it, while I attempt to tune it. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about why somebody would want to build a budget quadcopter. I mean, you've got people out there like Mr. Steele and like the best in the business, and they're like, hey, you know, if you want a good quadcopter that flies like the simulator and does everything you want it to do, just go ahead and buy my setup. Spend $500, no big deal, and like that'll last forever. But the thing is, like right when you get into FPV, you're gonna be doing a lot of crashing. You're gonna be doing a lot of hard crashing. And if you're like me, who isn't like Steele, Steele, no offense to Steele, he's a great pilot, but he doesn't push his flying in ways that would result in him crashing. Like he doesn't do a lot of Matty flips, he doesn't do a lot of backwards flying, there's not a lot of blindness going on there. He's not risking a lot when he's, I mean, it's very smooth, it's very, you know, it's incredibly, he's definitely got to where he is for a reason, but it's not a crashy style of flying is basically what I'm trying to say. It's not, when I fly, I mean, I'm crashing multiple times per pack. I mean, you want somebody who I think kind of represents the style I'm going for that I've not achieved, is like somebody like Wild Willie, who is just pushing it. He's just pushing those moves. He's always pushing what the quad can do. Crashing isn't really a concern. I mean, it should be a concern. You shouldn't be trying to crash your quad, definitely. You want to be, ultimately, you want to be able to do all this stuff without crashing. But crashing is a part of getting there. And if you're going to be crashing, you don't want to spend a lot of money. That's why I started out with, you know, Armatan. They have the warranty. But let's say you don't have $100 to spend on a frame, but you want to get into FPV, you want to get there, you want to crash something, but you don't want it to break on you, you don't want to have to wait for 2 weeks for parts. You just want something that'll work. And that's kind of the philosophy that went behind this decision. I mean, even though I'm not starting out, this is exactly the kind of a quad that I wish I had when I was starting out, because it's cheap. We're talking under $200, about $170 after, if you use the app to get 10% off, it's like $195. And it flies, you know, like my chameleons and like my good builds. It's probably not going to hold up to crashes quite as well. We're talking not the frames specifically, but more like motors, ESC, is just like electronic components. But honestly, when you're in my position, or like my position, where you don't have really any extra money laying around, spending $10 to replace a motor sounds a hell of a lot better than spending $26 to replace a motor, because that could make a really huge difference in your budget. So anyway, that's kind of like where I'm coming from with this build. There was also a few boxes, I guess, I wanted the build to check in order to fly at a level that I considered modern. And that was, I wanted it to have 32-bit ESCs, I wanted it to have 2306 with at least 2400 kV motor, like the freestyle ones I've been flying, because I wanted it to be a comparable flight experience to my other ones. In that vein, I wanted it to be a true X. I wanted to have plenty of FPV cam protection, and I just wanted something cheap, something light, and something that flies. And I think I've pretty much gotten that. So without further ado, let's get into the components. One Racerstar F4S all-in-one with 4 30-amp ESCs and a OSD and all that good stuff. 4 Racerstar Fire Edition 2306 2400 kV motors. 1 VTX 5848 Lite of an unnamed manufacturer, probably pretty sketchy. And we got a super light dipole antenna coming off of the MMCX connector, one Frsky XM Plus receiver, one CADX F1 CMOS camera with a 2mm lens, 1200 VTL, if that means anything to anybody, one XT60 connector, and last but not least, our TransTEC Frog Lite 5-inch frame. Alright, and she is complete. Looking fairly clean. Very light. I don't have a scale, but I would say she's much lighter than the Chameleons, for instance. I had an orange GoPro session mount that I used these really kind of thicker zip ties that I got at Home Depot, as well as some double-sided mounting tape under there to keep that on. And I ran the battery cable out the back, which may turn out to be a mistake. We'll talk about that later. But got the Frog battery plate here, and yeah, it's got the all-in-one, and the VTX did really well. In the stack, you can see there's plenty of room. Camera, digging it. I don't know how the quality is going to be. Never used the CADX, but here's to hoping. And yeah. So I really love the way she's turned out. Actually, she's really rigid. Actually, more rigid than the Chameleons. So that's interesting. That'll be interesting to let's see. I'm really curious to see how she's gonna take crashes. Anyway, all that's left to do is get out there, check out the tune, and give her the old maiden. Hello there, and welcome back to the old proving grounds. It's that church with all the awesome trees. It looks like there recently was or is going to be a soccer game here. But we are here to play a different game. The game of quads, the game of tuning, the game of testing. So let's get down to it. It is a little breezy out here, so I hope that the wind noise is not too much of a factor. I'm gonna get one of those some kind of a little fuzzy thing to put up there soon to stop that. And I also hope that the wind doesn't affect my tuning too much. Speaking of tuning, I brought a Samsung tablet out here with me to do some field tuning if need be. I kind of test hovered her in my room for a second to make sure she worked, but you know, you can only tell so much from, you know, this high of a hover or whatever. So basically, I hope that there's nothing wrong with the tune, because one of the main issues I have with the way that this frame is set up, or at least when combined with this kind of all-in-one type deal, is that the USB, I don't know if you can see it, there we go, you see it right there peeking out under the camera? Yeah, you have to take the camera out to get to it. So that's going to be yeah, a bit of a bitch if we do have to do any tuning. So let's hope that doesn't happen. A couple other things I wanted to mention, a couple, I guess, reservations I have about the quality of this build. It being a budget build, you know, you kind of get what you pay for a lot of the time in this hobby. I want to address the motors first. Had I had my way and it gone exactly as planned, I would have had the DYS Samgooks, the 2306, 24 or 2500 kV, something like that. The red ones with the arrows on the bell. I really wanted those, but they were out of stock. Of course, you know, I ordered this a few weeks ago, but like just a couple weeks after I ordered it, they came back in stock. But if I had to upgrade the motors on this, I would definitely get those. I have used Racerstar in the past on my old Wizard X220, and I think it was like the 4th or 5th battery, I hit a lamppost and ripped out 2 of the bells, and I was like, well, that ends my relationship with Racerstar. Little did I know that I'd be grabbing some of these Fire editions in a pinch. So I noticed they do have C-clips. There is no you know, screws or anything holding the shafts in, so I think that the bells ripping out are actually a super likely scenario, depending on the way that I crash. Anyway, One thing I do like about the, as you may notice, these kind of plastic arm guards, I think they may be better if they were 3D printed, but these hard plastic will work. I mean, they might shatter on concrete or something, I feel like, or chip off, but it came with 6 of them, so you do get a couple of backups, which I thought was really cool. The motor wires on these Racerstar motors were way too short. They went to about here, so I had to, on all 12 of them, I had to solder on extensions, which was a huge headache. It probably added another hour onto my build time, honestly, so that wasn't too cool. But I guess they weren't designed for, you know, maybe the foreign ones or whatever, or they didn't expect me to, you know, I don't know. Anyway, the VTX on here is a little bit sketchy. It's not like any kind of a brand name, it's just like a VTX. So I'm not sure how well that's gonna do, especially when paired up with this little dipole antenna here. I've never used one of these. I'm just trying the straight up antenna from the MMCX connector to see how that works. It's gonna save a lot of weight for what that's worth. I've never really been concerned with weight myself, but this, I should probably zip tie this because this antenna does come out a lot. If it does get pulled out of there, it does come like right into the prop line. So that is, that's not fun. Yeah, I also, I would also like to have, if it were possible, I didn't have enough money, to get a green GoPro session mount. I know this isn't really an actual concern with like the build or the frame or anything, but it would have matched the theme a lot better. I was kind of, because it was called a frog, I was going for the Amazon dart frog or the tree frog kind of a vibe. But anyway, as far as any more reservations, I think that just about does it. Oh, this CADX camera, I'm probably going to include some DVR footage from this flight because I don't know about you guys, but I don't have a lot of experience with these CADX. I actually don't know how they perform whatsoever, so I think it'd be interesting to see. This was only a $20 camera, so let's hope. And I also kind of regret going with this kind of old school body style one. I should have got one of their micros. I wasn't thinking, and the brace that it came with stripped out, so I only have this camera bolt holding it in back here. I do not have this one holding it in as it is on that side. So yeah, I also put landing pads on it, which looking back was kind of a weird decision since it has a bottom mount battery. It's never going to be really chilling like that, and when it is, it's kind of resting on the battery strap and pad more than anything. Oh yeah, also I run CNHLs, which are really big, so I don't think this plate is going to cover them. I don't know if it's meant for protection or just extra, you know, I don't know why this is here. I'm using it. I assume it's for protection. It may not perform as well with the longer CNHLs, but we'll see. Anyway, I am very excited to try this. So now that we have all of our expectations and our reservations out of the way, let's hope she flies. She's on 8 and 2 gyro and PID, and it's beta flight 3.2.3, running my normal rates. The PID tune is pretty much stock. I did crank the D down from about 30 to about 15 because usually the stock D is really high for me. And what else? Yeah, that's it, right? Okay, yeah, so let's do it. Let's see how she does. Maiden flight, maiden flight to test the tune. The pollen is so terrible. I can feel it in my eyes. Alright, well, I have definitely seen better looking cameras, like image quality wise. Although I am used to the Eagle 2, so I guess that's a factor. Anyway, let's hope it's on the right power setting and it doesn't cut out like when I get 10 feet away. All right, ready for liftoff. So one of my motors was getting super hot, and it turns out that there was a screw touching the wire or the windings, which is a very common problem. First time I've had it happen to me, but basically I think that's what was causing the twitch and oscillations. So I'm gonna test her out again. I'm gonna throw her back out and see if she still vibrates. I took out that screw. Unfortunately, I didn't have a backup, but I know that the holds can operate at 75% capacity, as far as I understand. They can even operate at 50%. Like, you can take 2 screws out and still have it work. Anyway, wish me luck on this one. Let's hope.
Yeah. AKA Lorena Vinci. Keep shining, keep growing, keep building. Yeah. Still growing, evident when I'm flowing. Shit I rap about is what my universe is showing. Damn right I changed, nigga, I grew. Tactile hands on like the rest of my crew. Still Queens-minded, New York-hearted. But if I didn't think worldwide, I'd be retarded. I departed from my old ways, now I'm enhanced. Looking back at the old me, shit I advanced. Fly with it to the death, though, priorities first. Parts for the props, your niggas dying of thirst. But never me, though, life is like a free throw. Used to play the block, but now I'm under the gazebo. Sipping something while I'm staring at the water. Focused on the wind like I'm preparing for the slaughter. I'm an advocate of progress. Helping myself while helping others in the process.
Before it was work, came about the dirt. Raised in basements, crawl spaces. Kept to himself, all you get from the neighbors. Insomniac, wanna out like the Raiders. Sun up to sun up, graduated from plastic cups. Full on lush, brolic as fuck. Leave work in a rush, put him to bed in the evening. Then sit in the dark, listen to him breathing. It's a beautiful thing, now I mean. Before you know it, they in they teens. Acting up, seeking out, paranoid. Or is the smell leaking out? It's like trying to roll fire in your mama house. Water hash in a drought like a ball against a scout. Kids too big for they room. I'm proud of them all. College applications in, they'll be gone in the fall.
Woo! Well, I'd say that was definitely the screw. She's flying pretty beautifully now. I think I actually need to turn the tune up a little bit, since I guess I was trying to tune to compensate for the screw being there, all the oscillations. So now the tune feels a little low, a little sluggish, but she's getting there. I'm probably not gonna experiment with the tune anymore today. I will flash on the screen the tune that I ended up going with in the end, so that in case you guys ever want to build one of these, you can know kind of what tune I was using. But as far as is it worth it? Is the budget build worth it? Does it hang with the big boys, my Chameleon on the Deadpools and Titan on the, or Chameleon Tie on the steel motors? I'd say yes. I mean, she's straight ripping it. So once again, if you are looking for a good quad to build, strong, crashed it a lot today, she's perfect. I mean, the motors, the props seem to come loose a lot on them, but aside from that, I can't really think of any downsides to this quad. I mean, even the camera performed a little bit better than I thought once I was actually flying with it. So, whew. I'm so out of shape. I mean, it was not even a long walk. But yeah, man, this is such a cool spot, because it's like a church, so on weekdays nobody comes here, and they got a huge amount of land, and then they got this parking lot I've never even really messed with, but it's the perfect place to come and test quads and all that. Before we call it a day, I just wanted to get into the DVR a little bit with y'all. On the right here, we've got the Cadex F1 camera that I got for the budget build, and on the left, we've got the Runcam Eagle 2 Pro on the Chameleon Tie build for comparison. And I think you can see a huge difference between the two. I mean, it's not exactly fair, because it is, for the budget build on the right, it's a pretty overcast day, and it's pretty clear for the Chameleon TI, so that definitely gives that one an advantage. But you can see that the picture is much better from the Runcam. But is it double as good? Because it is double the price. You know, you're talking $21 versus $50, so you decide, but I just figured I'd show you guys for the sake of it. Alright, here we are in the car because it's windy as all hell and there's so much pollen out there that it's starting to clog up my head. So here we are, just got done with the first session. Went through about 7 packs on this guy. As you can tell, my props are a little chewed. But she was great, honestly. She stood up to all the damage really well. The only thing that happened that I predicted might happen was the dipole antenna kind of came out, went to the prop line, got a little bit chewed up, but she's fine. Still putting out. I also lost one of my zip ties to my XM Plus, to my receiver. And aside from that, and a little bit of damage and, you know, a little bit of chippies to the motor guards, a little bit chewed there. But aside from that, which held up a lot better than I thought they would, honestly. The motors held up a lot better. She performed really well. The 2306 motors by Racerstar held up super well. I wasn't able to get the tune exactly where I wanted it, but I got it pretty darn close. So I'll post that tune. It's a good tune if you build one of these. It's good enough. I'll post like the real one once I do the real one. But for now, yeah, I would say this for like 170 bucks, really good. And it's a really good example of how the state of technology for this hobby is constantly going up in quality and down in price. So you could, if you were, I mean, if you spent $170 on a drone like this 2 years ago, I mean, you would get nothing. You wouldn't even be able to get, certainly not one that flew like this for $170. I mean, the Yashin Wizard by itself, like right when that came out, that was probably the most comparable thing to this you could get. But now I'm sure you could build like any number of variations of something like this for around 200 bucks and get your money's worth. Anyway, I'll stop rambling on and let you guys go. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always, and coming with me on this building and tuning adventure of this frog. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you later. Peace.
Sun up to sun up, graduated from plastic cups, full on lush, brolic as fuck. Leave work in a rush, put him to bed in the evening, then sit in the dark, listen to him breathing.